They ask, what would you call a father who locks his 6-month pregnant daughter outside in 39-degree weather while she bleeds? Cruel, heartless, criminal. But you want to know what I call him, Captain Mitchell? I call him the man who destroyed his own empire in one night. Because when you left me on that porch to die, when you laughed through the window while I collapsed, you made one mistake. You forgot that the people you underestimate are the ones who rise highest. Everyone thinks this story is about hypothermia and blood loss. But that's not where this fire started. The real fire started 3 years ago when my family decided my talent belonged to them. And it ended the night I nearly died proving them wrong. If you've ever had your work stolen by people who claimed to love you, you'll understand this story. Subscribe and comment where you're watching from. My name is Lola Ulette and I'm 28 years old. For the last 6 years, I've worked as an architect at my family's company, Ulette Construction. I design the buildings. My brother Randall takes the credit. That's how it's always been. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m., I sat in the mahogany conference room. The seating arrangement never changed. My father, Robert, commanded the head position. Randall, executive vice president, claimed the power seat to his right. And me? I sat nearest the door, like a visitor who might need to leave quickly. 6 months pregnant and 2 months widowed. That was my reality in November. My husband David died when a drunk driver ran a red light in Tacoma. The funeral was small. David's construction crew sent flowers. My family didn't attend. My father's exact words when I called him from the hospital, sobbing, "I warned you about marrying poor. At least he had life insurance, right?" No condolences, no comfort, just a question about money. Randall claimed an important client meeting, more important than his sister burying her husband. The baby kicked as I shifted in the uncomfortable conference chair. David's child would never know their father, and my family treated that loss like an inconvenience. The Waterfront Tower Project. My father announced that Wednesday in early November. $2 billion opportunity. The subcontract alone is worth $150 million. Randall leaned forward. We're perfectly positioned, Dad. Our connections, our reputation. Our reputation, Robert interrupted, is built on 3 generations of Ulette men who understood that construction is about strength, not sensitivity. I kept my eyes on my notebook, sketching modifications to a design I'd been perfecting for months. My hand instinctively moved to my growing belly. "Lola, are you even listening?" Randall's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "Or are you doodling again while we discuss real business?" "I'm listening," I replied quietly. "Good, because you need to understand how real deals are made. Not through your little drawings, but through relationships, power. Things you'll never have because you're too weak to take them." My father nodded approvingly. "Just observe and learn, Lola. This is men's work." The irony burned. They had no idea what I'd been building in secret. 3 years earlier, I learned exactly what my place was in the Ulette family hierarchy. The Riverside Complex. 42 stories of mixed-use development that would reshape Seattle's waterfront. I'd spent 6 months perfecting every detail, 18-hour days while Randall partied with clients. The night before the client presentation, Randall called. "Hey, little sister. Dad wants me to present tomorrow. Says it needs a strong voice." "But I designed everything. And you did great support work. But clients want to see leadership. Don't worry, your contribution won't go unnoticed." It did go unnoticed. 8 months later, when Riverside Complex won the AIA Northwest Award, Randall stood at the podium accepting the Crystal Trophy. The Seattle Times ran his photo. Randall Ulette, visionary behind award-winning Riverside Complex. I'd been standing in the back of the auditorium, 7 months pregnant with my first child, watching my brother claim my greatest achievement. David had squeezed my hand. "You should say something." "Family stays united," I'd whispered back, repeating the mantra my father had drilled into me since childhood. His success is my success. Now, 3 years later, sitting in that boardroom with David gone, I understood the lie in those words. Randall's success had been built entirely on my talent, my late nights, my innovation. The awards lining the office walls, the contracts worth millions. How many bore his name but contained my soul? "Still playing the victim, I see," my father observed, noticing my hand on my belly. "This is what happens when you marry beneath your station." David had been a structural engineer. Brilliant, but from a working-class family in Tacoma. No trust fund, no country club membership, no connections my father could exploit. To Robert Ulette, that made him worthless. "If you'd married someone like Harrison's son, a real provider, you wouldn't be in this mess," Randall added. "Now you're a burden on family resources." Resources. As if my grief was a line item on a budget. The baby was due in February. I was 6 months along now, though my oversized blazer hid most of the evidence. What my family didn't know was that I'd been working in secret for 2 years. That night, I stayed late in my small office, really a converted storage room my father had generously given me. While Ulette Construction slept, I worked on something that would change everything. My computer screen glowed with intricate architectural plans, not for my family's company, but for a project they knew nothing about. The file name read simply, Project Phoenix. An email notification popped up at 11:47 p.m. from A. Sterling at sterlingdevelopment.com. Subject, Revision 14. "Brilliant work on the revision. Your vision for the waterfront is exactly what Seattle needs. The board is impressed. Can we schedule a video call tomorrow at noon? Discreet line as agreed." I quickly typed back, "Confirmed. I'll use the secure connection." For 2 years, I'd been working under a carefully constructed identity, building a reputation entirely separate from the Ulette name. The email signature I used for this work read simply, L. Phoenix, Independent Architecture Consultant. My phone buzzed with another message. "Your sustainable design approach could revolutionize the industry. The innovation in Section 7 particularly. Genius." Genius. Not adequate for a woman, not cute attempt. Genius. Alexander Sterling, CEO of Sterling Development, had no idea he was about to award an $8 million contract to Robert Ulette's overlooked daughter. I saved my work to an encrypted drive, then cleared my browser history. Paranoid, maybe, but I'd learned the hard way that anything valuable I created in this building would inevitably become Randall's next award-winning project. Tomorrow's video call would be crucial. The client was ready to move forward. They just didn't know they were about to hire the architect my family called worthless. The manila envelope from Swedish Medical Center felt heavier than it should. I spread the bills across my kitchen table. $45,000 for specialized prenatal care, high-risk pregnancy with complications. Pre-existing condition, the insurance rejection letter stated. Pregnancy-related anxiety disorder diagnosed prior to coverage period. My hands shook as I reviewed my options. The trust fund my mother left when she died? $2 million that should have been mine, locked under my father's control until my 30th birthday, 14 months away. My mother had died when I was 16, leaving that money specifically for my independence. But Washington state law allowed the trustee to maintain control if he deemed me financially irresponsible. Marrying David without a prenuptial agreement had been all the excuse Robert needed. I pulled up my bank account. $3,247. David's life insurance was tied up in probate. The small salary my father paid me deliberately kept low, barely covered rent and groceries. The medical consent form stared back at me. Guarantor signature required. One signature. That's all I needed from Robert. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Dr. Harrison's office. The voicemail was gentle but urgent. Mrs. Ulette, we need to discuss your latest test results. Your blood pressure is concerning. Please call back immediately. I looked at the emergency medical form one more time, then placed it carefully in my purse. Tomorrow, I'd have to swallow my pride and ask my father for help. For the baby, I'd do anything, even beg. Beat 2, the breaking point. Preeclampsia indicators, Dr. Harrison said over the phone. Your blood pressure is 145/92. The protein in your urine has doubled. Mrs. Ulette, this is serious. I sat in my car outside Ulette Construction, gripping the steering wheel. Through the building's glass facade, I could see Randall in the conference room, laughing with clients. What does this mean for the baby? If your blood pressure spikes above 160/110, or if you experience severe headaches, vision changes, or bleeding, you need to come in immediately. We're talking about potential placental abruption, premature delivery, or worse. Worse. The word echoed. Any severe stress could trigger a crisis, Dr. Harrison continued. Do you have family support? Someone who can help you stay calm? I almost laughed. Yes, my family is very supportive. Good. Get that guarantor signature today. We need to admit you for monitoring within 48 hours if symptoms worsen. After hanging up, I sat in silence. Inside the building, Randall was showing something on his laptop, probably claiming credit for another of my designs. My father stood beside him, proud hand on his son's shoulder. A wave of dizziness hit me. I checked my blood pressure on the portable monitor Dr. Harrison had insisted I carry. 150/95. Higher than this morning. Just get the signature, I whispered to myself. Don't argue, don't defend yourself. Just get it and leave. My phone buzzed with a text from Randall. Family dinner at Dad's tonight, 7 p.m. Don't be late and embarrass us again. The last time I'd been to my father's house was the day of David's funeral, when they'd refused to attend. Beat 3, locked out. November 15th, 7:14 p.m. The storm hit Seattle with unusual fury. Winds at 40 miles per hour, rain falling sideways. My windshield wipers struggled to keep up as I drove through Bellevue toward my father's estate. A sharp pain shot across my abdomen. Not a contraction, something different. I pulled into a gas station, breathing through it. The blood pressure monitor read 150/95. Dangerous territory. Just get the signature, I repeated like a mantra. My father's house glowed against the storm, every window blazing with warm light. The circular driveway held Randall's new Tesla and my father's Mercedes. Through the dining room windows I could see them both, crystal glasses raised, laughing at something on Randall's phone. Another pain, stronger this time. I parked and checked my dress. No blood, not yet. The medical forms were safely in my purse, protected in a plastic folder. All I needed was one signature. 5 minutes maximum. I could do this. Walking to the front door, rain immediately soaked through my coat. The temperature had dropped to 39 degrees according to my car's display. Through the glass panels beside the door, I saw them clearly. My father in his burgundy smoking jacket, Randall in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. The dining table was set for 2. Only 2. I rang the doorbell, my hand shaking from cold and something else. Fear. Humiliation. The laughter inside stopped. Randall opened the door, whiskey fumes hitting me immediately. His eyes narrowed in confusion, then annoyance. Lola? What the hell are you doing here? You texted me about family dinner. That was a joke, he laughed, looking back at our father. Dad, you'll never guess who actually showed up. Robert appeared behind Randall, his expression shifting from amusement to irritation. You're dripping on my Persian rug. I need to talk to you. It's important. I pulled the medical folder from my purse, hands trembling. I need your signature as guarantor. The baby. There are complications. Complications? Robert took a sip of his whiskey. There are always complications with you, aren't there? Please, Dad, it's just one signature. The trust can cover it. The trust? He shook his head. Your mother's money meant to build the family legacy, not subsidize your poor choices. Randall laughed. Maybe if you hadn't spread your legs for that construction worker. David was an engineer. The words burst out before I could stop them. Was. Robert's voice was ice. And now you're here, begging, pregnant with a dead man's child, wanting us to pay for your mistakes. A sharp pain ripped through my abdomen. I grabbed the doorframe for support. Please, the doctor said it's urgent. The baby could what, die? Randall smirked. Might solve your problems. I stared at them both. These men who shared my blood but nothing else. I'm your daughter. Your sister. Doesn't that mean anything? Robert stepped forward, his face inches from mine. No. Randall shoved me backward onto the covered porch, not violently, just enough force to make me stumble. My hip hit the stone railing as I fought to keep balance. You want to play the victim? Fine, play it out there. He gestured to the rain pounding just beyond the porch covering. Maybe the cold will teach you not to show up uninvited. Randall, please. Oh, this is rich. Little Lola, always the martyr. He turned to our father. Should we watch the performance, Dad? Robert stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm chandelier. Your sister needs to learn that actions have consequences. The door started closing. Panic flooded through me. Wait, at least let me explain the medical... The lock clicked. Through the glass panels, I watched them walk back to the dining room, refilling their glasses as if nothing had happened. I pounded on the door. Dad! Randall! This is insane! They settled into their chairs. Randall pulled out his phone to show Robert something. Both laughed. The porch offered minimal shelter. Wind drove the rain sideways, soaking my coat within minutes. The temperature felt like it had dropped even further. My phone showed 39 degrees and falling. I tried the door handle again. Locked. The windows were all secured. Please, I called through the glass. I'm pregnant. This is dangerous. Randall looked up, made eye contact with me through the window, then deliberately turned his chair so his back faced me. The message was clear. I didn't exist. 30 minutes passed. My legs were shaking from cold, from fear, from the increasing contractions. I'd moved to the corner of the porch where the wind was less brutal, but my clothes were soaked through. Through the dining room window, I watched them eating dinner. Steak, from the looks of it. Randall was animatedly telling a story, using his hands to illustrate. My father laughed, raising his glass in a toast. A sharp cramp doubled me over. When I straightened, I felt wetness that wasn't rain. Looking down in the porch light, I saw a dark stain spreading on my dress. Blood. No. No, no, no. I stumbled to the window, pounding with both fists. I'm bleeding! Please! The baby! Randall stood up, walked to the window. For a moment, hope flared. He was coming to help. Instead, he pointed at the blood on my dress, then turned to our father with a theatrical expression of shock. Both men laughed. Randall made exaggerated gestures, mimicking someone acting in a play. Bravo! He mouthed through the glass, clapping slowly. Oscar-worthy! My father joined him at the window. They stood there, warm and dry, watching me like I was entertainment. Robert pointed at the blood, then made a dismissive wave. Drama queen, I saw him say, though the storm muffled his voice. Another contraction hit, stronger than before. I dropped to my knees on the cold stone, one hand on my belly, the other gripping the railing. The blood was flowing faster now, mixing with rainwater on the white porch. Randall pulled out his phone. For one desperate second, I thought he was calling 911. He was taking a video. 2 hours. 2 hours on that porch, while my body betrayed me and my family watched through glass. My vision had started to blur. The contractions came in waves now, each one stealing more blood, more strength. I'd managed to crawl to the front door, leaving a trail of red on the white stone. "Please," I whispered against the door, too weak to pound anymore. "The baby. Save the baby." The porch lights suddenly went out. In the darkness, I could barely make out their silhouettes in the dining room. They'd moved to the living room now, watching something on the massive TV. The flickering light illuminated their faces, relaxed, content, occasionally glancing toward the dark porch where I lay. My phone was dead. The rain had finally stopped, but the temperature had dropped further. The blood loss was making everything cold. So cold. I pressed my hands against my belly, feeling for movement. The baby had been still for the last 20 minutes. "Please move," I begged my child. "Please be okay." Through my fading consciousness, I heard a car door slam, then another, male voices approaching. "Jesus Christ, there's someone on the porch. Call 911. No!" I recognized that voice, though my brain struggled to place it. Lola. Oh my God. Lola, is that you? Strong arms lifted me. Warm coat wrapped around my shoulders. The scent of expensive cologne and leather. "We need to get her to the hospital now. She's hemorrhaging." The front door suddenly opened, light spilling out. My father stood there, his face shifting from annoyance to shock to fear. "What are you doing at my house?" he demanded. The man holding me stepped into the light, and I finally saw his face. Alexander Sterling. "What am I doing?" Alexander's voice was deadly quiet. "I'm saving your daughter's life. The daughter you left bleeding on your porch." Even through my haze, I felt the shift in power. Alexander Sterling wasn't just any CEO. He was Seattle construction royalty, the man whose approval could make or break companies like my father's. "This is a family matter," Robert started. "This is attempted murder." Alexander was already moving toward his Bentley, carrying me like I weighed nothing. "James, call Dr. Harrison at Swedish. Tell him we're coming in hot. Pregnant woman, massive hemorrhaging." His driver was already opening the back door. Alexander laid me across the leather seats, his suit jacket under my head. "Lola, stay with me. Talk to me." His hand found mine, warm and steady. "The baby," I managed to whisper. "Not moving." "We're 3 minutes from Swedish Medical. You're going to be fine. Both of you." Through the rear window, I saw my father and Randall standing in their doorway, illuminated by the porch light they'd finally turned on. Randall still held his whiskey glass. It slipped from his fingers, shattering on the stone. "Mr. Sterling," I heard my father call out, his voice different now, panicked. "Wait, let me explain." But the Bentley was already moving, Alexander barking orders into his phone. "I need the head of obstetrics ready. Prep an OR. I don't care if you have to wake up the entire board." His hand squeezed mine. "Lola, I've been trying to reach you about the waterfront presentation. Why didn't you tell me things were this bad?" I wanted to answer, but darkness was pulling me under. The last thing I heard was Alexander's voice, fierce and protective. "Nobody hurts my lead architect. Nobody." I woke to the sound of a fetal heart monitor. Strong, steady beats filled the room. My baby was alive. Thank God. "You scared us." Alexander's voice came from beside my bed. He looked exhausted, his usually perfect suit wrinkled, blood still staining the cuffs. "Us?" Dr. Harrison appeared on my other side. "Your baby is stable. We stopped the bleeding, but it was close." He shook his head. "Another hour and Mr. Sterling got you here just in time." Why were you at my father's house?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "I was driving back from a client dinner in Bellevue. I remembered you mentioned your family lived there. Thought I might drop off the final contracts for you to review." He paused. Then I saw someone collapsed on the porch. A knock at the door interrupted us. A firefighter in full gear stepped into the room. Tall, broad shoulders, soot on his jacket. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Mitchell. I got here as soon as Swedish notified us about the 911 call. He looked at Alexander. You called in a medical emergency from a residence in Bellevue? I need to take a report about what you witnessed. I'll tell you what I witnessed, Alexander said, his voice hard. This woman was left outside in freezing rain for over 2 hours by her own family while she was 6 months pregnant and hemorrhaging. I saw them through the window, watching her bleed, laughing. Captain Mitchell turned to me, his expression carefully neutral. Ma'am, can you tell me what happened tonight? Start from the beginning. So I did. While Dr. Harrison checked my vitals, while the fetal monitor beeped reassuringly, while Alexander paced by the window, I told Captain Mitchell everything. About going to my father's house, about needing the medical signature, about the locked door, the blood, the laughter through the window. They took a video, I said, my voice breaking. Randall pulled out his phone and recorded me bleeding on the porch. Captain Mitchell was writing in a small notebook. How long were you outside? Over 2 hours, maybe closer to 3. And they could see you the entire time? Yes, through the glass. They were eating dinner, drinking, watching TV. They turned off the porch light at one point, left me in complete darkness. Your body temperature when you arrived was 94 degrees, Dr. Harrison added. Severe hypothermia. Blood pressure at 158/102, dangerously high. She'd lost approximately 400 milliliters of blood. The placental bleeding could have resulted in complete abruption. He looked at Captain Mitchell. This woman and her baby nearly died tonight. Alexander stopped pacing. I have security footage. We all turned to him. You what? I asked. My head of security has connections. After I brought you here, I had him pull the surveillance from your father's property. He pulled out his phone. It's all time-stamped, you collapsing, the blood on the white stone, your father and brother visible through the windows. Captain Mitchell's expression hardened. I'm going to need a copy of that footage. Already sent to your department, and to the police investigating domestic violence cases. Wait, I said. Police? Ma'am, what happened to you tonight constitutes criminal endangerment of a pregnant woman, Captain Mitchell explained. Dr. Harrison filed a mandatory report when you were admitted. The police are already involved. Fear spiked through me. If everyone knows, my family will... Your family, Alexander interrupted, his voice cold, has bigger problems to worry about than their reputation. Captain Mitchell closed his notebook. Ms. Ulette, I need to ask you something. The emergency that brought you to your father's house tonight. You mentioned needing a signature for medical expenses? I nodded, suddenly exhausted. I have preeclampsia, high-risk pregnancy. I need specialized care, but my insurance denied coverage. My father controls my inheritance from my mother. I needed his signature to access the trust for the medical bills. And he refused? He called it subsidizing my poor choices. The words tasted bitter. My husband died 2 months ago. My father's response was to ask if David at least had life insurance. Captain Mitchell's jaw tightened. I saw something shift in his eyes. Anger, carefully controlled. Ms. Ulette, there's something you should know. Your father called Swedish Medical this morning. He was asking about your mental competency, trying to get information about whether you were capable of signing legal documents. My blood went cold. Why would he? He's been trying to preemptively discredit you, Alexander said. He must have sensed something, known you were planning something he couldn't control. I looked at Alexander. You said you were bringing contracts? He pulled a folder from his briefcase. The signing ceremony is in 5 days, November 20th. 200 guests. The mayor, the architectural board, every major construction firm in Seattle. He paused. Your father and Randall have premium seats. Table 2, right behind my executive team. Why would they? Because they're expecting to win the $150 million subcontract for the waterfront tower. Alexander's smile was cold. They have no idea the architect they've been so desperate to impress is the daughter they left to die on their porch. Understanding crashed over me. You want me there, at the ceremony. I want you there as L. Phoenix, lead architect. It's time to stop hiding, Lola. I can't. If they find out, they're about to find out anyway. He opened the folder, showing me email after email, contract after contract, all dated, all signed, all legally binding. 2 years of work, $8 million, the most important project in Seattle's history. They can't steal this from you. Captain Mitchell looked between us. I'm missing something here. For 2 years, Alexander explained, Ms. Ulette has been working under a pseudonym, L. Phoenix. She's the lead architect for Seattle's new waterfront tower, a $2 billion project. Her family has been claiming her work for years, so she created a separate identity to protect herself. And now you want to expose that identity publicly? In front of 200 witnesses, Alexander confirmed, including her father and brother, who will be there expecting to profit from her work once again. I thought about David, about our baby, about every stolen moment of recognition, about the blood on the white porch stones. What do I wear? I asked. Alexander smiled. Whatever makes you feel powerful, because you are. Over the next hour, while nurses monitored me, while my body slowly warmed, I told Captain Mitchell the full story. The Riverside Complex, I said. 3 years ago, I designed every inch of it. 42 stories, mixed-use development, 6 months of 18-hour days. I remember that building, Captain Mitchell said. Won awards, didn't it? The AIA Northwest Award. My brother Randall accepted it while I stood in the back of the auditorium, 7 months pregnant, watching him claim my achievement. I pulled out my phone, showing him photos I'd saved. My original sketches, all dated, email threads with contractors, time-stamped photos of me working late at the office, blueprints spread across my desk. Every award on the wall at Ulette Construction, every contract worth millions. How many of them are actually Randall's work versus mine? I looked at Captain Mitchell. That's why I became L. Phoenix. 2 years ago, I submitted my portfolio to Sterling Development under a pseudonym, did all meetings virtually, sent site visits. I was terrified they'd find out who I really was and the Ulette name would poison everything. But why would your family name poison a business deal? Captain Mitchell asked. Alexander answered, because everyone in Seattle construction knows the Ulettes. Robert's reputation is complicated. Brilliant businessman, terrible human being. If Sterling Development had known L. Phoenix was his daughter, we would have assumed she was incompetent, that Daddy was doing the work behind the scenes. But she wasn't incompetent, Captain Mitchell said. She's a genius, Alexander corrected. The waterfront tower design is revolutionary. 40% energy reduction, integrated community spaces, affordable housing seamlessly blended with luxury units. It's going to redefine Seattle's skyline. And you had no idea it was Lola. Not until tonight. Alexander looked at me. Though, in retrospect, there were clues. L. Phoenix always insisted on virtual meetings, never wanted to meet in person. Always had reasons why site visits had to be scheduled carefully. He paused. I thought it was just an eccentric architect protecting their creative space. I didn't realize it was someone protecting themselves from theft. Captain Mitchell was quiet for a moment, processing. So the signing ceremony in 5 days. You're planning to reveal L. Phoenix's identity in front of Lola's father and brother? In front of everyone, Alexander said, including the press, the mayor, the architectural board, every major firm that's been courting Ulette Construction for years. That's a public execution, Captain Mitchell observed. That's justice, I said quietly. They nearly killed me tonight. They've been killing my career for years. Every design I created, every innovation, every achievement stolen and claimed by Randall while I stood in the shadows. Your father controls your inheritance, Captain Mitchell said, reviewing his notes. $2 million your mother left you. Until I'm 30, 14 months away. He deemed me financially irresponsible because I married David without a prenuptial agreement. The anger felt clean now, sharp. My mother died when I was 16. She left that money specifically so I could be independent. And my father has used it to keep me dependent, to keep me begging. Dr. Harrison returned with test results. Your blood pressure is stabilizing at 138/88, still elevated but manageable. The baby's heartbeat is strong and steady. He looked at me seriously. But Ms. Ulette, the stress levels you experienced tonight, your cortisol was off the charts. What happened could have triggered complete placental abruption. Your father and brother essentially tried to kill you and the baby. I'll need that in writing, Captain Mitchell said, for the police report. You'll have it within the hour. Alexander pulled out his laptop. There's something else you should see. He opened a video file. Security footage from Robert Ulette's property, November 15th, 7:47 p.m. to 10:52 p.m. He turned the screen so Captain Mitchell and I could see. The video was grainy but clear, black and white, time-stamped in the corner. 7:47 p.m. Me arriving at the door, Randall opening it. The confrontation visible through the glass panels. 8:02 p.m. Me pushed onto the porch, the door closing, locking. 8:15 p.m. Me pounding on the window, my father and Randall visible inside, eating dinner. 8:43 p.m. Me collapsing, the dark stain spreading on my dress, visible even in black and white. 8:47 p.m. Randall approaching the window, looking directly at me, taking out his phone, recording. 9:15 p.m. Me crawling to the door, the blood trail on the white stone. 9:34 p.m. The porch light going out, complete darkness. 10:52 p.m. Alexander's car pulling up, him running to the porch, carrying me to the Bentley. Through it all, my father and Randall were visible through the dining room and living room windows. Eating, drinking, laughing, watching TV. Turn it off, I whispered. Alexander closed the laptop. The timestamp shows you were out there for 3 hours and 5 minutes. Captain Mitchell stood. Ms. Ulette, I've been a firefighter for 18 years. I've seen a lot of cruelty, but this, he shook his head, this is among the worst. What happens now? I asked. The police investigation continues. With this footage, Dr. Harrison's report, and Mr. Sterling's eyewitness testimony, your father and brother are looking at criminal charges. Reckless endangerment at minimum, possibly attempted murder. And the signing ceremony? Alexander asked. That's not my jurisdiction, Captain Mitchell said. But if Ms. Ulette wants to reveal her identity publicly, she has every right. The security footage is now evidence, which means it's going to become public record eventually anyway. He turned to me. What happened to you tonight isn't just about work being stolen or family dysfunction. You were left to die while 6 months pregnant. You and your child nearly didn't survive. That's not something you owe them privacy about. I looked at my hands, still shaking slightly, IVs attached, monitors beeping. I thought about David, about the baby inside me, about every time I'd stood in the back of a room while Randall accepted applause for my work. I want to be at the ceremony, I said. I want everyone to know. Alexander nodded. Then that's what we'll do. Captain Mitchell closed his notebook. I'll make sure the police have everything they need. The investigation will proceed whether or not you press charges, but I recommend you speak with a lawyer about civil action as well. Already done, Alexander said. My legal team is at her disposal. After Captain Mitchell left, Alexander sat back down beside my bed. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. The public reveal. I can handle the ceremony differently. Protect your privacy. No, I said firmly. They made their choices. I'm making mine. I'm done being invisible. He smiled. Good, because Seattle is about to meet its most brilliant architect. Alexander, I said, why are you doing this? You barely know me. He was quiet for a moment. My mother was an architect. Brilliant. She worked for my father's company for 20 years, designed half the buildings in Pioneer Square. He looked out the window. When she died, my father gave her obituary to the Seattle Times. It said she was a devoted wife and mother who enjoyed sketching in her spare time. No mention of her work, her innovations, her contributions. I'm sorry. I didn't understand it then. I was 12. But years later, I found her portfolios. Dozens of buildings with my father's name on them. Her work, her genius, erased. He looked back at me. When L. Phoenix submitted that first portfolio 2 years ago, I saw something in the designs. Something that reminded me of my mother. Not the style, but the philosophy. Buildings meant to serve people, not egos. I never knew. Nobody does. My father's still alive, still claims credit, still accepted as Seattle's architectural pioneer. Alexander's voice hardened. I can't give my mother back what she lost, but I can make damn sure you don't lose what's yours. November 20th, 5 days later. The Four Seasons ballroom gleamed with Seattle's elite. Crystal chandeliers, ivory linens, 200 of the city's most powerful people. I watched from the VIP prep room as guests arrived. Through the door's crack, I could see table 2 perfectly. My father, resplendent in his navy Armani suit, glad-handing everyone within reach. Randall beside him, designer everything, checking his phone between forced laughs. Ulette Construction built half of downtown, I heard Robert telling the couple at table 3. The waterfront project needs experienced hands, not experimental nonsense. Alexander appeared beside me. Ready? I smoothed my black Carolina Herrera dress, the one David had bought me for our anniversary. My 6-month bump was prominent now. No hiding it. They don't know I'm here. They think you're still in the hospital. Alexander's smile was cold. Your father called Swedish this morning. Asked if you were mentally competent to sign over power of attorney. Through the door, I watched Randall lean over to a reporter. Sterling's being secretive about his architect, probably some East Coast import. No one knows Seattle like we do. The irony was delicious. Sarah Mitchell from the architectural board took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the signing, Alexander Sterling has asked to say a few words about the selection process. My father straightened in his chair, that confident smile spreading. He thought this was his moment. Alexander squeezed my shoulder. Watch this. He strode to the podium with the confidence of a man about to detonate a carefully placed bomb. Before Alexander could speak, my father stood up, raising his champagne glass. The room turned to him. If I may, he said with practiced charm. Before we celebrate this magnificent project, let me share something about Seattle's construction legacy. Alexander paused at the podium, allowing it. I knew that look, giving my father enough rope. Ulette Construction has been building this city for 3 generations. Robert continued. My grandfather, my father, and now my son Randall and I continue that tradition. We don't just build structures. We build the future. Randall stood, joining the impromptu toast. Which is why we're honored to be considered for the primary subcontract. Our vision aligns perfectly with Sterling development standards. He was practically claiming the contract already. The hubris was stunning. Alexander returned to the microphone. Thank you, Robert. Randall, your passion for Seattle is noted. His tone was perfectly neutral. Now, before we discuss contracts, there's someone everyone needs to meet. The person without whom Waterfront Tower wouldn't exist. My father smiled broader. 2 years ago, Alexander began. Sterling Development received a portfolio that changed everything. The designs were revolutionary. 40% energy reduction, integrated community spaces, affordable housing seamlessly blended with luxury units. My father leaned forward, interested despite himself. The architect worked under a pseudonym, insisting on anonymity. Every meeting was virtual, every document digitally signed. For 2 years, this genius reshaped our entire vision while remaining completely hidden. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, the waterfront tower isn't just a building. It's a statement about what Seattle can become, and the person who designed it understood something crucial. He paused, his eyes finding my father's. Architecture isn't about ego or legacy or family names. It's about creating spaces where people thrive, regardless of their background. The giant screens around the room flickered to life, showing my designs, the sustainable features, the community gardens, the way natural light would flood even the lowest income units. The architect who created this is here today, Alexander continued. They've been here all along, hidden in plain sight, overlooked by those who should have celebrated them most. My father was frowning now, scanning the room. Before I introduce them, you should know this person designed these masterpieces while facing personal tragedy, family betrayal, and life-threatening medical crisis. Alexander turned toward the VIP room, his hand extended. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome L. Phoenix, lead architect of Waterfront Tower. This was it. I stepped into the light. The room held its breath. I walked slowly, deliberately, my black dress elegant against my pregnant silhouette. My eyes stayed fixed ahead. The sound of shattering glass cut through the silence. Randall had dropped his champagne flute. What? My father's voice, strangled. What is she doing here? I reached the podium, Alexander's hand steady on my back. 200 faces stared at me, but I only saw 2. Frozen in identical masks of shock and growing horror. Good afternoon, I said into the microphone. I'm Lola Ulette, though you know my work is L. Phoenix. My father shot to his feet. This is a mistake. My daughter isn't. She can't be. Sit down, Robert. Alexander's voice was steel. You'll want to hear this. But my father remained standing, his face cycling through confusion, rage, and something that looked like fear. The screens behind me changed, showing email after email, contracts, design approvals, all dated, all signed with my digital signature, all verified by Sterling Development's legal team. For 2 years, I continued, my voice steady. I've led the design team for Waterfront Tower. Every sustainable feature, every community space, every innovation you've admired came from my drafting table. Sarah Mitchell from the architectural board stood up. Lola, you're L. Phoenix? You won the AIA Innovation Award last month. Yes, I confirmed, though my family didn't know. They were too busy claiming credit for my other work. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Randall finally found his voice. This is impossible. She's nobody. She's nothing. Alexander took the microphone. Let me clarify the timeline for everyone. The screens shifted to a detailed presentation. January 2023. L. Phoenix submits revolutionary designs for our waterfront development. March 2023. We sign an exclusive contract, $8 million plus 2% equity. Gasps echoed through the room. My father sank into his chair. For 2 years, Ms. Ulette worked tirelessly on this project. 300 hours of design meetings, 47 complete revisions, all while maintaining absolute secrecy. Why the secrecy? Someone called out. I leaned into the microphone. Because my family has a history of claiming my work. The Riverside Complex that won the 2021 AIA Award, I designed it. My brother Randall accepted that award while I watched from the back row, 7 months pregnant. Randall's face flushed red. That's a lie. I designed Riverside. Really? I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the presentation system. Then explain these. The screen's filled with my original sketches, all dated and digitized. Email threads with contractors asking for Lola's innovative touches. Time-stamped photos of me working late at the office. Blueprints spread across my desk. Sarah Mitchell stood again. I remember now. The Riverside submission materials. The handwriting in the margins was yours, wasn't it? Every note, every calculation, every innovation that made it award-worthy. The room was buzzing now. Phones coming out, people recording. Alexander returned to the microphone. There's more. Contract WTD-2024-1876, dated September 1st, legally establishes Ms. Ulette as lead architect. This was filed with the city, the architectural board, and our legal department. It's ironclad. My father tried once more. She's my daughter. Surely the family connection. The family that locked her outside in freezing rain 5 nights ago? Alexander's voice turned ice cold. While she was 6 months pregnant and bleeding, the room went silent. What? Someone whispered. Alexander nodded to his assistant, who started a new video on the screens. The security footage played in black and white, me collapsing on the porch, the blood visible even in the grainy video. My father and Randall, clearly identifiable, toasting through the window. That's attempted murder, someone said. At minimum, it's criminal endangerment, the mayor said, his voice hard, of a pregnant woman. My father tried to speak, but no words came. Randall had gone green. The footage continued, Alexander discovering me, carrying my limp form to his car. The timestamp showed 10:52 p.m. I'd been on that porch for over 3 hours. Turn it off, my father rasped. But no one moved to stop it. The room was dead silent, except for the sound of phone cameras clicking. Every major outlet in Seattle was represented. Tomorrow this would be front-page news. Mr. Ulette, a reporter called out, do you have any comment on your treatment of your pregnant daughter? It was a misunderstanding, Robert started. A misunderstanding? Dr. Harrison stood up from table 5. I hadn't known he was here. I treated Ms. Ulette that night. She nearly died. The baby nearly died. Her blood pressure was at stroke levels. She'd lost a dangerous amount of blood. He pulled out his phone, reading from medical records. Severe dehydration, hypothermia onset, placental bleeding, preeclampsia crisis. All caused by prolonged exposure to extreme stress and cold while being denied medical care by her family. She's lying, Randall shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. She's always been dramatic. I have the medical records, Dr. Harrison said coldly, and I've already filed them with the police. 2 uniformed officers entered the ballroom. I hadn't expected this. We're not here to make arrests, one said, addressing the room. But we need Robert and Randall Ulette to know they're under investigation. My father's legs seemed to give out. He collapsed into his chair. Around him, the other guests at table 2 had shifted away, physically distancing themselves from contamination. Randall was typing frantically on his phone, probably trying damage control. But it was too late. The story was already spreading. Alexander returned to the podium, his voice carrying the finality of a judge's gavel. Let me be crystal clear. Any company that chooses to work with Ulette Construction will never work with Sterling Development. Ever. The threat landed like a bomb. Sterling Development controlled $2 billion in annual contracts. It was a death sentence. You can't do this, my father shouted, finding his voice. This is business, not personal. Abusing family is personal. Stealing credit is personal. Attempting to destroy talent instead of nurturing it is personal. Alexander's voice was ice. Business is built on values, Robert. Yours are worthless. Thomas Chen from Cascade Investment stood up at table 4. Sterling Development has our full support. Chen Industries is also severing all ties with Ulette Construction effective immediately. Another investor rose. Then another. Within minutes, 7 major firms had publicly cut ties. "This is insane," Randall screamed. "Over her? She's nobody." "Nobody?" Sarah Mitchell laughed bitterly. "She's the most innovative architect Seattle has seen in a generation, and you threw her away like garbage." My father tried one last desperate play. "Lola, please, you're still my daughter. Tell them this is a misunderstanding." I looked at him. This man who'd controlled my life, stolen my work, nearly killed his grandchild. "A misunderstanding?" I said quietly into the microphone. "Like when you said I'd never amount to anything? Like when Randall stole my designs? Like when you left me bleeding in the cold?" "We're family." "No," I said firmly. "Family doesn't do what you did. You're just people I used to know." The dominoes fell fast. Within 10 minutes of Alexander's declaration, phones were buzzing across the ballroom. Randall's phone rang. He answered with shaking hands. "What do you mean, emergency board meeting?" His voice cracked. "They can't remove me. I own 15%. But apparently they could, and they were. Meanwhile, my father was on his own call. $300 million credit line frozen? You can't..." He listened, his face growing grayer. "Because of reputational risk? This is 40 years of relationship." A reporter from the Seattle Times approached their table. "Mr. Ulette, can you confirm that Ulette Construction is now facing a liquidity crisis?" "No comment," Robert muttered. But everyone could see the truth. The empire was crashing. "Ms. Ulette," another reporter called to me, "what's your response to your family's crisis?" I thought carefully. "I hope they use this as an opportunity for growth, for learning that talent and hard work deserve recognition regardless of gender or family position." "That's it?" the reporter pressed. "No anger?" "Anger is exhausting. I have a baby to prepare for and a building to complete. I don't have time for anger." Alexander leaned into his own microphone. "Sterling Development will be establishing a foundation for women in architecture who face discrimination. Our first grant of $1 million will support pregnant women and new mothers in the field." He looked directly at my father. "We're calling it the Phoenix Foundation, rising from the ashes of abuse." My father stumbled toward me as the crowd began to disperse. His perfect composure finally shattered. "Lola, please. We need to talk." Security moved to intercept, but I held up my hand. "Let him speak. Let everyone hear." "You're destroying everything," he hissed. "Everything your grandfather built. Everything I've worked for." "Everything you built on my work, you mean?" I kept my voice level, professional. "The Riverside Complex, the Harbor Square renovation, the Belltown Towers. Should I continue?" "You're still my daughter." "Biologically, yes. But family is about love, support, protection. You locked me out in freezing rain while I bled. That's not family. That's abuse." Randall joined him, desperate. "We can work this out. We'll give you credit. We'll make you a partner." "A partner?" I almost laughed. "I don't need your partnership. I have my own company now." This was news to everyone, including Alexander, who raised an eyebrow. "Phoenix Architecture Studios," I announced, "opening next month. We'll specialize in sustainable, community-focused design, and we'll never, ever steal credit from our employees." "This is revenge," Robert accused. "No, revenge would be pursuing criminal charges for attempted murder. This is consequence." I turned to address the remaining crowd. My father and brother made choices. Now they're experiencing the results. That's not revenge. That's justice. "Lola," my father reached for me. "Don't." I stepped back. "You made your choice that night on the porch, when you laughed while I bled. Now live with it." As security escorted my father and Randall out, the room transformed. Where there had been shock, now there was opportunity. Ms. Ulette, a woman approached. Jennifer Park from Cascade Architecture. We'd love to partner with Phoenix Studios. We have 12 projects that could use your innovation. Before I could respond, another firm approached, then another. Within minutes, I had business cards from 10 major firms. Alexander smiled. I should mention Sterling Development is prepared to offer Ms. Ulette the position of Chief Design Officer. $500,000 annual salary plus equity. The number was staggering. There's one condition, he continued. We want Phoenix Studios as our exclusive residential partner. Your firm, your vision, backed by our resources. Sarah Mitchell added, joining us. The Architectural Board would like to fund a scholarship program through Phoenix Studios for young women facing family opposition to their careers. Dr. Harrison appeared at my elbow. Swedish Medical wants to sponsor a maternity leave program for your employees. Full pay, 6 months, no questions asked. It was overwhelming. In 30 minutes, I'd gone from nobody to the most sought-after architect in Seattle. There's one thing I want to make clear, I said, addressing everyone. Phoenix Studios will donate 10% of profits to supporting women escaping domestic abuse, because talent shouldn't be trapped by toxic families. The applause was immediate and genuine. Your father and brother? Someone asked. They'll survive or they won't. That's no longer my concern. I placed my hand on my belly. I have a future to build. Epilogue. 6 months later. Phoenix Architecture Studios occupied a beautiful loft in Pioneer Square with views of Elliott Bay. 30 employees, 27 women, 3 men, all brilliant, all previously overlooked by traditional firms. Hope Phoenix arrived on February 16th at 3:47 a.m. 6 pounds, 4 ounces of perfect. As I held her in the hospital, looking out at Seattle waking up, I thought about that night on the porch, how close we'd come to not making it, the city my family claimed to own but never understood. It didn't belong to the Ulettes, or anyone with a name on a building. It belonged to everyone who worked to make it better. Alexander visited that afternoon, holding flowers. The waterfront tower is 60% complete, he said, already winning pre-construction awards. And my family? Ulette Construction lost 70% of their clients. Stock price down 52%. Your father was removed from the Seattle Business Council. The Rainier Club revoked his membership. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just peace. Randall's wife, Catherine, filed for divorce. Alexander continued. She said she couldn't stay with someone capable of what she saw on that video. And the criminal investigation? Still ongoing. The DA is building a case for reckless endangerment. With the security footage, Dr. Harrison's testimony, and the medical records, they have everything they need. Hope stirred in my arms, making small noises. Your daddy would have loved you, I whispered to her. And Mommy's going to make sure you grow up knowing your worth isn't determined by your last name or how well you please others. It's determined by who you choose to be. 1 year later, the waterfront tower's grand opening drew 2,000 people. I stood with 18-month-old Hope on my hip, watching the ribbon cutting. She pointed at the building, babbling excitedly. Yes, baby. Mommy built that while you were in my belly. We built it together. In the crowd, I spotted my father and Randall, invited as regular guests, not VIPs. They watched from a distance, respecting the boundaries. They'd completed a year of therapy, made public apologies, donated to domestic violence shelters, signed legal documents acknowledging my sole custody. My father caught my eye and nodded, acknowledgement without intrusion. Progress. As the sun set through the building's solar panels, casting rainbow patterns across Seattle, I thought about that night on the porch one last time. How that loss had become my greatest gain.
That was Lola Ulette. I'm Captain Dean Mitchell, Station 47. We got the call at 10:52 p.m. on November 15th. Medical emergency in Bellevue. Possible domestic violence, pregnant woman in distress. When we arrived at Swedish Medical, emergency staff were already treating a 28-year-old woman for severe hypothermia, blood loss, and pregnancy complications. Her body temperature was 94 degrees. Her blood pressure was at stroke levels. She'd lost enough blood to put both her and her unborn child at critical risk. The investigation found she'd been locked outside in 39-degree weather for over 2 hours by her father and brother while 6 months pregnant, and actively hemorrhaging security footage showed them watching through a window, laughing while she collapsed on their porch. Lola survived. Her daughter Hope was born healthy 3 months later. Her family's construction empire collapsed within a week of the truth coming out. I've been fighting fires for 18 years. I've learned that sometimes the most dangerous fires burn in families. They're the fires of envy, of control, of people who'd rather destroy talent than celebrate it. Lola spent 28 years being told she was worthless, that her work belonged to the men in her family, that her talent didn't matter because she was a woman. But here's what her family didn't understand. You can't steal someone's gift. You can claim credit for their work. You can lock them out in the cold. You can try to break them, but you can't steal who they are. The night Lola nearly died on that porch, she was already the most innovative architect in Seattle. Her family just refused to see it. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones standing on your shoulders, blocking your light, claiming your accomplishments as their own, and sometimes the only way to rise is to step out of their shadow entirely. Lola didn't just survive that night. She built an empire from the ashes of theirs. She turned her pain into purpose. She transformed her invisibility into legacy. Her daughter will grow up knowing her mother's worth wasn't determined by family approval. It was determined by her own talent, her own strength, her own refusal to stay small. If you're the person everyone overlooks, the one whose work gets stolen, the one who's told you're not enough, remember this: they're standing on your shoulders for a reason. You're already higher than they'll ever reach. I'm Captain Dean Mitchell, Station 47. Stay safe out there.